Hey everybody, Vic back with you once again. Still wearing my Back to the Future t-shirt. Hope you enjoyed the video about my favorite nursing homes I ever performed at. And now I'm going to do my best or my favorite senior centers or council on aging centers, as it were. They're really in no particular order here either until you get to the top three or four. Number 10 is Mendon, Massachusetts. Um, that's up in the western part of the state in Worcester County. And I got to Mendon because of my number 9 pick, which is Franklin. So I'm going to kind of take these two together. So I had got in touch with Franklin because at the time where I was making the move to concentrate on senior centers in addition to nursing homes, I just was looking on a map online, and Franklin was a town that I knew because I knew people from Franklin. And at a club that I was DJing at the time, there was a guy named Glenn Worlowski. He was from Franklin, and he said, "Hey Vic, have you ever thought about coming to perform in Franklin?" And I was like, "No, but I'll give it a shot." Well, the first time I talked to them, they weren't keen on it. Time goes by, few years, and then suddenly it was like, "Hey, yeah," because they had heard about Franklin had heard about me from Rentham. So that's how I got to Franklin. Didn't do a lot of shows at the Franklin Senior Center. I did Elvis in the red suit, and I did Legends of Vegas, and I also DJ'd a disco day for them, where they just it was a celebration of their volunteers, and I just DJ'd disco music. And so because I wowed them, then I got to go to Mendon because there was people in Franklin who were from Mendon, and they went to Mendon and said, "Hey, this guy just performed in Franklin. You might want to check him out." I once again didn't do a lot in Mendon. I did Elvis in the white suit, I did Jimmy Buffett, and I did Jukebox Memories, and that was it. Because unfortunately, at the time frame we're talking here, then I moved to Florida not too soon after that. So that's why we'll take 10 and 9 together. Number 8 is Lakeville, and this was actually one of the very first senior centers that I ever played at in Lakeville, Massachusetts, which is to the west of where I grew up in Middleborough. And I had got the gig there because I just was looking at COAs. I had had two unsuccessful shows in Mansfield and Plainville. Unsuccessful because, all right, my sister-in-law and I did Disney shows there, and they weren't keen on it. So I said, okay, let me go back to Elvis. That's my fallback. That's how I started in the business. So that's what happened next. I presented Elvis to the senior centers, and I broke ground. At the time, nobody was doing council on aging centers. Very few people were performing, if any. I was told that I was a groundbreaker at a lot of different places. So Lakeville was a town I was very familiar with. Plus, I knew the people that were over there because I had worked with them years ago when I was working as a producer for local access TV in Middleborough for Continental Cablevision. So I kept those connections. I kept in touch with those people, and I got into do at Lakeville. I did all my Elvis incarnations, and I did Cowboy Sam. That's where the name came from. Director Marilyn Mansfield came up with the name for Cowboy Sam. And then I had done Jimmy Buffett, which you can actually see on my channel here, the Parrot Head Party that I had done for them. And unfortunately, that would end up being the final show that I did for the town of Lakeville at their Council on Aging Center. Speaking of Middleborough, speaking of the hometown, I got to put them on the list at number 7. I didn't get to go to Middleborough for quite a few years after I made my push into COAs. But what had happened was their director and their activities coordinator had seen me in Lakeville a couple times. They were like, "Wait a minute, this guy's making some noise," because I had done Lakeville and I had done Freetown and I had done a couple other towns that I'm going to mention in a little bit. So it was like, once they found out I was from Middleborough, it was like, "Oh, we got to bring him in, hometown boy," you know. So let me see. The first was in 2012. I did Elvis, white suit. Then I did Neil Diamond the second year. I did Jimmy Buffett the third year. Then they took a year off, and then they brought me back as Cowboy Sam. And then in 16, I believe it was, they brought me back as Draculus, my Halloween show, hybrid of Dracula and Alice Cooper. So it was an interesting run over there. And they also filmed for TV. This was my first experience at a senior center that actually would record the shows and put them on local access, ironically, because like I said, I'd worked for local access cable in Middleborough at Continental years ago. Now, their MCAM, Middleborough Community Cable Access and Media, now we're filming my shows and showing them on their public access channel, and still do to this day. Karen Foy, who was in charge over there, that's who in charge at MCAM. That's who had put me on TV, and keep in touch with her to this day. As far as directors in Mendon, Amy Kent, I had talked to a couple times. Franklin, I haven't talked to anybody from, and Lakeville, Marilyn retired. Her daughter Vicky took over, and subsequently retired, and I don't even know who took her place. Kind of lost touch with those folks, unfortunately. But Middleborough, once again, Sue Hotchkiss was the activities coordinator there for the center, and it was the one who had brought me in. Director's name escapes me for the moment. Okay, on to number 6. 6 is very unique. It's for the town of Dighton, which was right next to Taunton. However, I did not play at the COA. I didn't play at the senior center. They didn't have anything at their senior center. Instead, they had an adult day program on Route 138 in Dighton, right behind the town hall, and it was called the Dighton Primetime. And at Dighton Primetime, Sheila New, who I have kept in touch with, all these years later, she was another one of the first to get on board with me, because she had heard from, I think it was Freetown she had heard from, or it might have been Lakeville, I don't know, but it was, again, this was in the early days, and she brought me in, and I did every incarnation of Elvis at least once or twice, because I played there a lot. I mean, she used to bring me in 4 or 5 times a year, and I did Vegas, and I did Stars and Stripes, and I did Neil Diamond, and I did Cowboy Sam, and I did Jukebox Memories, and I did Christmas. So I did a lot. I really came into Dighton kind of, double barrels, ready to go. So, and Sheila was very good to me, and I've kept in touch with her, and as recently as 4 or 5 months ago, she emailed me some pictures from performances that I had done there. So that was cool, getting to see those pictures again, and those wonderful memories of the town of Dighton, because it wasn't a very big building. I mean, it was an adult day center with 2 rooms. There was the room I performed in, and then there was like a dining room with a kitchen. And the room I performed in sat probably a maximum of 20 people, but it was always full, and those folks always had a good time. And I think I might have even done a mixed bag for them once. I mean, I did a little bit of everything over there, and it was nice. So that was the Dighton Primetime. Number 6 was Swansea. Another very interesting story here. So the first time I played at the Swansea Senior Center, which was actually a converted old church that they turned into the senior center. So the acoustics in there were awesome. Didn't need any reverb on my system. There was the cathedral ceilings, and just the way this place was made was perfect for live musical entertainment. So the first time I played there was in the year 2010, and I did my Disney show, but this time without my sister-in-law, Sherry. This time I did the show myself. And I thought it bombed, so I never called them again until probably by about 2 or 3 years, about 2 years later. Then they called me and they're like, "Hey, how come you haven't called us for another show?" And I'm like, "Well, the Disney show was a little disastrous. I didn't have a good feeling about it." And they're like, No, we liked it. We want you to come back. We want you to come do some more for us." I'm like, "Okay." And they kept me on. They used to do me. They used to book me 3 times a year, 3 shows a year, and I did every incarnation of Elvis. I did Neil Diamond a couple times for them. I did Legends of Vegas twice. I did Stars and Stripes. I did Christmas a couple of times, and Jukebox Memories. That might be it. Now that I'm thinking about it, that might be it. Yeah, because but the town of Swansea, very, very good to me. Um, and Christine was the name of the woman that booked me. However, I cannot think of her last name to save my life, but that happens sometimes. Now, number 4 has an interesting twist. Seekonk, Massachusetts, which is right on the border of East Providence, Rhode Island. This is the closest to Rhode Island I got. Never played a senior center in Rhode Island, only nursing homes. But Seekonk came on the radar because at the time I was working at Best Buy full time. This is 2010. Or was it 9? It was 9, actually. It was 2009. And a couple of the kids I worked with at Best Buy were from Seekonk. And I was talking about the different shows I'd done. And this one particular manager that I worked with, she said to me, "Hey, my father's a selectman in the town of Seekonk. Have you ever considered playing in Seekonk?" And I was like, "No. Can we make that happen?" Sure enough, it did. He had put in a good word for me, and excuse me, because I'm tucking my shirt here, it got kind of bunched up. She put in a good word for me, and when I contacted Seekonk, they were gung ho, they were ready to go, and once again, every incarnation of Elvis. I think I even, excuse me, I think I even did the white suit twice and the blue suit twice. I think I even did the black leather suit for them too, when I still had that. I don't have that anymore. And I did Neil Diamond for them, and I did Legends of Vegas, and I did Christmas, and I did Elvis Christmas. I did, I don't think I did Stars and Stripes. I did Jukebox Memories. And then there was a time where they weren't booking anything because they were using the upstairs of an old elementary school as their senior center. The first floor was being used by a youth organization for children to come in and play basketball and, you know, arts and crafts, things like that. And then the upper level, this was an old school. The upper level was used as the senior center. Well, long story short, they moved out of there and they were doing things at the Seekonk YMCA until their brand new senior center on Arcade Avenue was being built. And they didn't do any entertainment until the new center opened up. And I'm the first guy they called to entertain, to do Elvis in the red suit. They said, "We want you to be our first entertainer because you've always been good to us over the years. We want you to be our very first entertainer." And I said, "Great." You know, I was like, "I'd be glad to come in and do it." I said, "But here's the catch, folks. It's also going to be the last time you see me because I ended up moving to Florida 2 months later." So, yeah, I helped them open up the center, but it was also Seekonk and I saying goodbye to one another. So it's kind of funny how that one worked out. But Bernadette Huck was the director, and still is to this day, I do believe. And I made some contacts over there too. There was a woman from, was she from Rehoboth? I can't remember her name. I'm horrible with names sometimes. I'm good with faces, but names give me trouble. This woman had seen me a couple of times over there, and then she said, "Hey, we do a big triad for the towns of Seekonk, Rehoboth, and Dighton. Everybody gets together, all the seniors get together, and they have this big meeting, and then they have entertainment." And she's like, "Would you be interested in entertaining for us at the triad?" And I said, "Sure." So I did that for them 2 years in a row. Elvis white suit the first year, blue suit the second year, and then I ended up moving away. So I only was able to do the triad party 2 years in a row, but it was fun, and that came out of Seekonk. Okay, number 3 on the list is, by God, if I had to like really like narrow it down to my favorite centers of all time, well, number 3 is definitely one of those, and that's Norton. Norton is a small town next to Taunton on Route 123. Good route for me. And they had this small senior center that I think fit 50 people at the most. But they weren't doing anything with entertainment for years. And then suddenly one of their seniors saw me at the Berkeley Senior Center in Berkeley, Massachusetts, and went back to Norton and said, "Hey, give this guy a look. I think he could be fun over here." So I came in and I did one show, and I said, "Look, I'll do the show for free. The first show is free, and then you guys can decide if you want to book me or not." And on my way out the door, the director, or no, it wasn't the director because they had no director at the time. It was like a secretary or just someone who worked at the center, came in and shook my hand and slipped me $25 and said, "Thank you for the show. We'll be in touch." And I'm like, whoa, $25 is not a lot of money, but at least I got something, got money for gas. And then Beth Taylor Rossi, one of my absolute favorite COA directors in the world, took over as director, and we were off to the races. We're talking every incarnation of Elvis. The red suit made its debut in Norton. The Norton COA was the very first building I ever wore the red and gold jumpsuit. So then after that, it was Neil Diamond, and then we did some mixed bags, and we did Legends of Vegas, we did Jimmy Buffett, we did Cowboy Sam. Neil Diamond we did a couple times, actually. And then I did their Christmas party for the Friends of the Norton Elderly at the Chateau restaurant on the other side of Route 123. And Anthony Sylvia and I did the Blues Brothers there too. So, I mean, there was a little bit of everything. And then 2 months before I moved, I did the one final mixed bag for them. But then 2 weeks before I moved to Florida, I did the senior luncheon. They had a senior luncheon at St. Mary's Church right up the street from the center the first Saturday of June, or the second Saturday of June every year. And they brought me in every year. And 2 weeks before I moved to Florida, I did my final show there as Elvis in the white suit. Pictures of that are on my Facebook page, Solo Sound Entertainment. Number 2 is from, and number 1 are both from Cape Cod. Number 2 is the town of Dennis. Dennis and Harwich, I got to lump them together because they both booked me a lot. I got to Dennis because my first center that I performed down in Cape Cod was in Barnstable, in the Hyannis area of Barnstable. And that was the largest senior center on Cape Cod. You probably saw some pictures on Facebook that I put up from that show. 200 people in the audience when I did Elvis, covered by the Cape Cod Times newspaper. It was a big deal. It was a big deal to these folks, and we had a lot of fun, and they brought me back the following year to do Neil Diamond. But what happened was there were people from Dennis in the audience. 2 weeks later, I went back to Cape Cod. A guy named Pat McLaughlin booked me to come and do a show in his home for his wife's 70th birthday, who loved Elvis. And again, people from Dennis were there, and they're like, "When are you coming to the Dennis Senior Center?" I said, "Make it happen." I said, "I'll call them, but, if you know somebody that, if you can talk to somebody," well, wouldn't you know it, the following Monday, I got the call from Dennis. And in Dennis, I did every incarnation of Elvis with the exception of the red suit. Actually, no, I'm sorry, I take that back. I did do the red suit. I did every incarnation of Elvis. I did Jimmy Buffett a couple times, Vegas a couple times, Christmas, you name it. I did everything over there. Harwich was a little bit of a different deal. Harwich had heard of me from Dennis, Chatham, and might have been Barnstable. They kept hearing about me playing at these other places, and they were like, "Wait a minute, we should get this guy in here." They had what was called the Monday Night Supper series, in which they put on these free meals, these free nice dinners for the seniors of Harwich, and they would have entertainment. So for the summers of 2013, 14, 15, and 16, they brought me in for 4 or 5 shots each of those summers. So they booked me more than anyone, even Dennis, on Cape Cod. And then ultimately, my last show for them would be in April of 17 before I moved, which I did my Stars and Stripes. I'm not going to name the shows because pretty much you know what my shows are. I did all of those there at least one time. So Harwich brought me in on a pretty regular basis on Monday nights in the summer. And it was wonderful. And of course, I would always stop at Mark Anthony's on my way home to have supper after my show was done. With the exception of the last one. The final one, I actually sat and had supper with the seniors. But that was it. We're going to concentrate on positivity. I'm not going to do the worst. If you want to see the nursing homes and COAs I didn't have so much fun at, go to Solo Sound Entertainment on Facebook, and you'll see those lists there, because I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. I just wanted to concentrate on the positive. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment with this list or my others, and thank you very much for watching.